Chagas disease is a kind of an elusive disease, I would call it. It's even difficult to describe elusive parasites. So the causative agent is a trypanosome, Trypanosoma cruzi, the South American trypanosome, cousin to the Trypanosoma brucei, causative agent of sleeping sickness. And then they multiply intracellularly. So that's the main difference also to the African trypanosomes. So the Trypanosoma cruzi is, I call it elusive because it can infect basically any type of mammalian cell, as long as it's nucleated. It also has an enormously broad host range, so it's its zoonosis. It infects any kind of host cell. It's everywhere in the body, but with remarkably few symptoms. I think the current estimates is about 7 million people infected with Chagas disease. I would say it's probably a rather gross underestimate because most of these people don't know what Chagas disease is. They have no idea that they are infected with Chagas disease. The consequences, Chagas has a kind of a chronic character. After initial phase that lasts for a few weeks with a fever, kind of non-specific symptoms, the infected patient may be completely free of symptoms for decades. And then in an estimated 30% or so of patients, chronic symptoms may turn up, like heart, pathology of the heart, and also of the digestive tract, so megacolon. So that is then very severe diseases, can have fatal consequences. But again, probably many even fatal cases of Chagas disease are never diagnosed as such, maybe diagnosed as a heart attack, but actually the patient had a Chagas. Origin is clearly in Latin America, South and Middle America. That's where the kind of natural transmission via the bug, the triatomine bug is taking place. But Chagas disease has, due to migration, spread worldwide. So we have cases in Switzerland, in Geneva typically. There is an estimated 300,000 cases in the United States. Chagas disease has spread in every continent. It's transmitted by bugs, by triatomine bugs. During the blood meal, the trypanosomes are deposited via the feces near the wound, near the biting site. The patient maybe gets an itch, scratches, or maybe gets into the mucosa. That's how the trypanosomes infect a human or any other type of mammalian host. But there, outside of Latin America, transmission does not occur via the bug, but there is a mother-to-child transmission. The unborn can be infected. And then there is also the possibility of transmission via blood donations or even organ transplantations. Initially, there may be symptoms at the biting site, particularly if it's near the eye. It's called chagoma. But there may be no symptoms at the bite. There may be fever and headaches, but not necessarily for a couple of weeks. So it's kind of diffuse. That is also why Chagas disease is elusive and difficult to make out and diagnose. There's basically these three phases. This first kind of acute phase, then there is a latent phase where the patients or the infected people are free of symptoms. And then after, can be decades or several decades, a certain percentage of the infected patients estimated 20 to 30% develop really severe symptoms that involve cardiac pathologies and also pathologies in the gastrointestinal system, so mainly megacolon, for instance. And these, in particular, the cardiac symptoms can actually be fatal. It's treated basically with only two drugs called benznidazole and nifurtimox. These are old molecules. I think they're not even registered by the FDA in the US, but that's all we have at the moment to treat. There is no vaccine, unfortunately. So really, all the treatment load, I would say, relies on these two molecules. They are suboptimal in the sense that they have side effects, and they're also, both of them are not registered for use during pregnancy, which is a big problem because mother-to-child transmission during pregnancy of Chagas disease is a high risk. So clearly there is a need for new and better drugs. You can, I guess, most importantly, protect yourselves from the bite of the triatomine bugs. That, of course, starts with the type of housing you have or you choose. Well, that's easily said, but poor people may not have a choice. So, of course, in a hut made of mud, there's more bugs than in a concrete house. There is also, and I forgot to mention that before, oral transmission. There are reported cases, for instance, where people got infected from drinking fruit juice or sugarcane juice, where the fruit or the sugarcane, there were infected triatomine bugs feeding on this fruit, and they were processed together with the fruit and ended up in the juice. So that's also a means of transmission, even in wealthier areas where there is solid houses without triatomines. So there, the protection would be kind of a food hygiene. I guess it would be necessary to pasteurize these drinks. There's no shortage of challenges. As I told you, it's an elusive parasite. It has this huge animal reservoir, diversity of vectors that can transmit it. There's also, we have a lot of, I would say, knowledge gaps in the biology of the parasite. Where do they exactly reside? What makes them become virulent suddenly after a long term of chronic phase? How can we attack them? Clearly, also the immune system of the infected patient is also involved. How can immune system be strengthened? So that's one big challenge, is the knowledge gaps we have in the biology. Another challenge, I would say, has to do with awareness and education, that people actually know and care about Chagas disease. There were studies done, for instance, in Los Angeles with immigrants, where it turned out that the vast majority of immigrants did not know, immigrants from Latin America did not know what Chagas disease is. And among those who knew, many thought it was a harmless disease. So raising awareness about exposed people who are at risk of infection, maybe when, for instance, when they travel home, or people living, of course, in endemic countries, but of course also raising awareness among the decision makers, politicians, with campaigns. That's, I would say, is another challenge. So to me, Chagas disease is among the neglected diseases, has a particular degree of neglect, given the medical importance it has. There is no vaccine, so we need chemotherapy, drugs to treat Chagas disease, and there is two molecules available, benznidazole and nifurtimox, where I think benznidazole is most widely used. It's effective. It's certainly effective in the acute stage. It's hard to exactly measure the efficacy in the chronic stage, but basically it works. But I should say it has adverse effects, and a big but is that it's not registered for use during pregnancy, which is a very important requisite for a new molecule against Chagas disease. Worldwide, there are many institutes, particularly, of course, in South America and Central America. Also here in Switzerland, at the Swiss TPH, we are interested. We try to find new molecules that can become drugs for Chagas disease. I would like to mention the Drugs for Neglected Disease initiative. They're located in Geneva, and they are globally, I would say, a very important player in orchestrating research, bringing partners together in these public-private partnerships to make new drugs for Chagas disease. Of course, also the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is extremely important in funding such research. I think there is I would call it promising results from the lab. Of course, it's a long way to make a new drug. We're talking about, I would say, at least 12 years. Cost estimates are maybe about $1 billion for one drug. So there are molecules in the pipeline that are being tested now, a preclinical development. And there is also clinical tests on the way of old and new molecules. Money is one thing, but there's also what I would say these kind of knowledge gaps that we have to know, even if there were more money, what to do exactly with it. Also improving, for instance, diagnostics, being clear about what is the target product profile for new drugs, what kind of molecules do we need to cure Chagas disease, how can it be cured. So I would say, of course, it would be good to have even more funds and more money, but there's also questions that need to be addressed first to guide us what exactly or how to best use the money. Same with, of course, we haven't talked about vector control. We talked about curing the infected people, but protecting the uninfected is, of course, extremely important, and there vector control has a big role to play, and again, there's a lot of research also to be done there, but also kind of implementation we need to do. Talking to students or to people, they blame it on the pharma. They make big money and they don't care about the neglected diseases, which I think is pointless to complain about that. Obviously, the pharma industry is profit-oriented. They have to consider diseases as potential markets, but they are really willing to contribute. They also have, of course, a PR effect. Of course, they also have an interest in Latin American countries. So they are actually on board in many initiatives. We collaborate with diverse partners from pharma, big pharma, and SMEs as well. And DNDi, the Drugs for Neglected Diseases Initiative, is doing a really great job in coordinating collaborations. Chagas is also a bit special because actually the parasites and the vectors occur in the United States, in the southern states of the USA. So there is also always the potential interest of pharma that actually they could make money from new drugs for Chagas disease. There is not that many cases because these are kind of sylvatic cycles where there are trypanosomes, there are infected vectors, but mainly the cycle involves forest animals. But with Chagas, there is a potential interest even of big pharma for new drugs. I would say promote awareness first, and there is very good examples. I just saw that, for instance, the Barça Foundation of the Barcelona soccer club, they are involved in Chagas. Lionel Messi was a Chagas ambassador. I think that's a great idea if you want to raise awareness in Latin America, involved football stars. That really makes sense to me.